Good morning everyone. Basa tayo natin libro guys. Kapwa Filipino, magbasa tayo. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 12 February 2023. Pinabati ko lang yung ating kaibigan. Happy birthday Sarah. Always be in good health and God bless. History of the Filipino People, Part 4 pa rin tayo, the American Period. Topic number 20 na. Ang bilis na. 20 Preparations for Independence. Basa. 20 Preparations for Independence. Full of optimism for the future, President Quezon had said in his inaugural speech that we are bringing into being a new nation. We are witnessing the final stage in the fulfillment of the noblest undertaking ever attempted by any nation in its dealings with the subject people. We shall build a government that will be just, honest, efficient, and strong, so that the foundations of the coming republic may be firm and enduring, a government, indeed, that must satisfy not only the passing needs of the hour, but also the exacting demand of the future. Quezon envisioned the Commonwealth as a transition period during which the government would make adjustment, political, social, economic, and cultural, in preparation for complete independence. Quezon inherited seemingly insurmountable problems from Spanish and American times. Ulitin ko ha. Quezon inherited seemingly insurmountable problems from Spanish and American times. It remained for him and the other national leaders, with the support of the Filipino people, to prove to the world that the Philippines was capable and deserving of independent national existence. Three main problems occupied the attention of the Commonwealth government: the need for political stability, national security, and an underdeveloped economy that had become too dependent upon the United States. From these problems emanate minor ones that commanded equal attention and consideration. The Commonwealth applied itself to the challenge and attempted to solve these nagging problems of the country. The problem of national security. The American authorities had paid little attention to the need for installing an adequate defense system in the Philippines before the Commonwealth was inaugurated. The balance of power in Asia, for one thing, did not warrant the establishment of defense preparations in the Philippines. The uncertainty of American tenure in the Philippines might have also contributed to the failure of the United States to provide for the national defense of the country. In 1921, however, the World Service Mission called attention to the need for an adequate local organization of the Philippine people for the defense of the islands against aggression, and recommended to the college administration that it should at once take the necessary steps to organize, train, and equip such a force. Governor General Wood repeatedly called attention to the country's lack of defense facilities against aggression and internal disorders, and argued against early independence because of such unpreparedness. However, the Republican-controlled Harding and college administrations almost totally disregarded these suggestions. The American leaders, for their part, believed that the Philippines had little defense potential and that in any invasion, the Philippines would be lost to the enemy in the early phase of the battle without much serious fight on the part of the latter. The Filipino leaders, on the other hand, preoccupied as they were with the campaign for political independence, did not foresee that the problem of national security was central to the problem of complete independence from the United States. Nevertheless, had both the American authorities and the Filipino leaders realized early enough the need for an adequate defense system for the Philippines. The government's limited funds and the urgency of establishing education, health, and public works program would have also contributed to its relegation to the background. Developments in the 1930s, however, modified this altogether in different views. The fear of foreign aggression, presumably Japan, led the Commonwealth to consider the problem of national security an urgent one, which must take priority over other problems of the Philippines. It was in the light of this exigency that the first law of the National Assembly enacted was the National Defense Act, Commonwealth Act Number 1, which provided for the establishment of national defense for the Philippines. The Commonwealth was concerned that the Philippines might lie in the path of Japan's southward penetration of Asia. The peaceful economic penetration of the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaya, and other Southeast Asian countries during the first 30 years of the present century led many critical Filipinos to fear that the Japanese would someday take over the Philippines. They pointed out that the Japanese had concluded several notes of assurance with the Americans. Example, Americans AG, the top several the Katsura Agreement, the Lansing AG notes, in which the Japanese agreed to respect America's sphere of influence in Asia. i.e., the Philippines in exchange for American assurances that Japan would have a free hand in Korea, were simply biding their time until the United States withdrew from the Philippines. From a strictly economic vantage point position of the Philippines could provide much needed livings. Warp na siya guys, hindi na siya makita masyado. Lebensraum, living space. For the teeming population of Japan had begun in the early 1900s. Sa kalumaan ba ng libro guys, warp na siya. Biro mo ilang taon na to, 1985. Tapos tayo ngayon 2023. Or simply biding their time until the United States withdrew from the Philippines. From a strictly economic vantage point position of the Philippines could provide much needed living space for the teeming population of Japan. Japan had begun in the early 1900s the peaceful economic penetration of the Philippines and had considerably investment in nearly every sector of the country's economy. The Japanese had firmly established. Japan had begun in the early 1900s the peaceful economic penetration of the Philippines and had considerably investments in nearly every sector of the country's economy. The Japanese had firmly, guys? May nag-text sa cellphone. The Japanese had firmly established influential self-sufficient communities in Manila and Davao. The Japanese had firmly established influential self-sufficient communities in Manila and Davao. Japan became the second most important trading partner of the Philippines outside of the United States and would have edged out the United States by reason of distance and low labor rates in Japan in certain industrial products if the latter did not enjoy preferential trade arrangements with the Philippines. Moreover, the Philippines was situated within that area of greatest economic interest to the Japanese. The rich agricultural and mineral resources of the Philippines would complement the oil resources of the Netherlands East Indies, now Indonesia, the mineral tin and copper, the rubber resources of Malaya, the rice bowl of Asia, Burma, Thailand, and French Indochina. That once under Japanese control would make Japan the suzerain of the entire Southeast Asian region. The two the strategic location of the Japanese would be considerably significant to Japanese militaries who were in the 1930s gaining control of Japan. Wait lang. In view of these apprehensions, President Quezon requested and obtained the services of General Douglas MacArthur in formulating the Philippine defense system. MacArthur, who had by this time retired as Chief of Staff of the United States Army, responded to Quezon's request, and the appreciative President conferred upon the doughty general the title of Field Marshal of the Philippine Army, a pompous but implied title. As military advisor to the Commonwealth and Chief of the United States military mission to the Philippines, MacArthur was largely responsible for the country's defense system. MacArthur's defense plan envisioned the organization of a citizen army composed of two forces: a regular force of about 10,000 men, including the Philippine Constabulary, and a reserve force that would increase by 40,000 each year through a continuous program of training 21-year-old able-bodied men for a period of 5.5 months. MacArthur believed that at the end of the Commonwealth period, the Philippines would have at least 400,000 reserve citizen soldiers. By 1938, however, only 69,848 had been given intensive military training. The slow passing of the program prompted MacArthur to announce in January 1940 that 30,000 recruits would be trained annually, so that by 1946 the Philippines would have an armed force of approximately 300,000 reservists. Preparatory military training in the elementary, high school, and collegiate levels, particularly in the latter's reserve officers training corps, would help supplement the regular government training given the recruits. The defense plan also involved the establishment of a modest Philippine Navy. The limited finances of the Philippine government prevented the acquisition of advanced and sophisticated naval material. Consequently, MacArthur, ibig sabihin guys, masyado na tayong late. Consequently, MacArthur suggested that Quezon purchase 50 to 100 torpedo boats that would form the basis of the country's offshore patrol. MacArthur believed that while these boats could not prevent massive naval landings of the enemy, they could at least harass the enemy and force it to effect segmented naval landings. MacArthur also envisaged the organization of an Army Air Corps to supplement the offshore patrol and the infantry. The Army Air Corps would be composed of a fleet of fast bombers and would deny the use of territorial waters to stealth surface craft. By 1941, the Commonwealth had acquired around 40 or so planes, most of which were used for training. MacArthur also stressed military aviation, and by 1940 the program had trained about 100 really good flyers. MacArthur, exuding optimism, believed that if the requirements of the defense plan were met, the Philippines would require a favorable posture of defensive security that would impose a cost of conquest of any invader that will exceed any hope. He may logically entertain the political and economic advantage. The general declared that after the 10-year defense, such that no chancellery in the world, if it accepts the opinion of its military and naval staffs, will ever willingly make an effort to willfully attack the Philippines. Many military experts, however, disagreed with MacArthur. Some of them noted the fatal weaknesses of the system. They pointed out that a few high-grade mechanized military units complemented by a powerful navy and air force could easily break down the Philippine armed forces and could, in fact, bring about an effective naval blockade of the country, especially if, after independence, the United States should withdraw completely from the Philippines. General Johnson Ano to? General Johnson good at one time. Ewan ko if like basta yun ang kasunod niya. 366, 367. General Johnson good at one time commanding general of the Philippine Department reported with an air of pessimism to President Herbert Hoover that it is not within the wildest possibility to maintain or to raise in the Philippines a sufficient force to defend against any probable foe. The adequacy of the MacArthur-Quezon defense program was indeed questionable. On the eve of the war in the Pacific, the Philippine Defense Plan had produced only 132,000 trained reservists, two-thirds short of MacArthur goal, only 2 torpedo boats, and about 40 bomber planes that were of immediate post-World War I vintage and were therefore hardly of any use in intercepting enemy planes. MacArthur plans required a total appropriation of $80 million, but the Commonwealth, hard-pressed for funds to support itself, could not raise even a fraction of the sum required. Quezon maintained that it was the duty of the United States to prepare the Philippines militarily in view of the fact that it was American sovereignty that would be endangered should the Japanese invade the Philippines. The American leaders, however, disclaimed any responsibility over the defense needs of the country. Quezon requested that the United States Congress make appropriation for civilian emergency aid for the Filipinos, while American officials, for their part, pointed out that relief for civilians in times of war was the responsibility of the Commonwealth. As a result, when the war broke out in December 1941, the Filipinos had only a haphazardly prepared civilian emergency administration to meet the exigencies of the situation. Quezon also requested that the accumulated revenues from the processing taxes collected on Philippine goods be diverted from its proposed use for economic readjustment to national defense purposes, and appealed to the American Congress to suspend for 1 year the imposition of export taxes provided by the Tidings McDuffie to enable the Commonwealth to use the funds for the defense plan, but the American Congress dilly-dallied too long on Quezon's requests. Shortly after the hostilities started, Congress included his suggestions in an army appropriation bill, but by then it was already too late. Bukas na yung national language, guys. Sobrang haba ng paragraph ng problem of national security. Bye everyone, God bless.